It's the Beaconsfield Model Railway Club's 53rd exhibition. We first stop at Tamcester by Ben Sharridge, an N-gauge layout which represents a large town somewhere between London and Birmingham, served by a loop off the West Coast Main Line, set in the sectorisation years of BR, anywhere between the mid-1980s and the early 1990s. In this busy scene, Class 4747018 in rail freight large logo grey stops at the signal with a nuclear flask train, before classmate 47710 Sir Walter Scott passes with a passenger service. As the train thunders through the station, a local stopping service in the hands of a regional railways DMU departs in the opposite direction, whilst a Class 86 with a Network South East stock sits in the top platform. A short while later, preserved A4 60009 Union of South Africa steams through the station with a special, whilst 47018 departs with its flask train. Next to arrive is an engineering train in the hands of a Class 37, whilst in the neighbouring platform a speeding service arrives behind Class 85101. The 37 must have stopped for a quick crew change, as it doesn't hang around. The 85 soon departs as Union of South Africa returns in the opposite direction. And finally, no West Coast mainline layout is complete without a local EMU service. Here a pair of Network South East 321s arrive at the station. And so we move from the West Coast to the Great West. This is Loudwater, an OR gauge layout by Graham Chandler. During the 1950s, Loudwater was on the branch from Maidenhead to High Wycombe, which was opened on the 11th of August 1864. Although there were no regular express movements through the station, occasional diversions were necessary when the line between Maidenhead and Oxford via Reading was blocked to traffic, resulting in the diversion over the single line branch line as demonstrated by the layout. An unidentified mogul in Great Western livery passes over the level crossing and through the station with a local freight as it draws into the yard. The layout is an impressive size with beautiful scenery and great detail. We glimpse another freight as it pulls away from Loudwater in the hands of a 94XX class tank locomotive. I like how the line disappears behind the houses rather than the standard bridge or tunnel to venture into a fiddle yard. A rail car patiently waits on the platform as a 64XX class pannier arrives from stopping service. Signal is cleared and the rail car departs. And now we move to North Wales for Carreg Wen, which is a 009 gauge layout by Matthew and Helen King, set in Snowdonia, approximately 1880, representing passenger working of a former horse tramway that's been converted to steam traction in Snowdonia. Here we see a Hughes locomotive and tramway engineering works Falcon class locomotive shunts and slate wagons. The layout features working level crossing gates, although every time I tried to catch them, they'd already moved. The layout also features some wonderful pieces of rolling stock, including the Correg Railway tramway style passenger cars. And after finally shunting its train, the locomotive departs. And we finally see a small England in its original guise, number 3 Mountaineer, pulling into the station.
Are you familiar with something called Wichambreux Rd? No, I'm not sure myself. It's like that. So, the thing about email is it's limited on file size. So, with today's cameras and phones, we get about whereas WeTransfer, which is connected by
Next is a delightful layout called Goonhilly, an O-gauge layout by Stephen Rogerson. This layout was brilliant because it allowed children to interact with it. As you can see, my boy rather enjoyed it.
There we go. Signal wall? Yeah, alright. Mind your fingers, Peter. That's it. Right, so that's going into the station. All the passengers are getting off, and the new ones are getting on. And the guard is the signalman's gonna change the signal. Watch. Now the guard is gonna blow his whistle, so you can press that green button.
Well, then press the button.
That's it, all aboard. And now you can come and press this one for the engine to tell us that he's going. There he goes, look. Well done, magic. You. And now we need to switch the signal back, and that's gone off to Corwenna.
Next is Corwenna, an OO gauge layout by Phil Waterfield. It's a 1950s location inspired by the line between Boscombe Junction to Wentford Bridge in Cornwall, which was worked by the iconic BT Well tanks. Here, one of those BT Well tanks, 30587, is shunting around the China Clay Yard. There's some great modelling on here, like the China Clay drying stores and the allotments at the front of the layout. The rolling stock is also beautifully weathered. As we slowly transition into the southern region, we go to Horsebridge Wharf. This is an EM gauge by Clive Abbott. It's a fictional layout at the end of a branch line from Plymouth to Callington in the 1930s. The principal traffic stems from quarries up the River Tame, plus coal and other goods to local villages.
Yes, we do drop them.
Here we catch locomotive 216 shunting around the yard. I particularly like the modified Airfix engine shed, which had the roof changed for a corrugated style. For a small layout, there's plenty to see and lots going on. Horses in the yard, a coal crane, there's even a small wagon turntable on which a diesel shunter is sat. Next is Frampton-on-Severn, an 00 gauge layout by Dave Fryer. Unfortunately, it seems that not even model railways can avoid the strikes. There's very little moved when we came to visit. We move on to our next 00 gauge layout, Haydon Square by the Farnham and District Model Railway Club. It's a station yard scene on the arches just off Fenchurch Street in London in the late 1950s. A ginty can be seen hard at work shunting the yard as we pan round. It's an impressive sized layout, and I particularly enjoyed the scene on the lower arches with the J70 tram shunting backwards and forwards, as it's shown in the previous clip.
Still going.
As we pan round and take a look at the layout, the Class 08 shunter prepares to start work.
Come on, boy.
I've done that wrong. Not with it today.
If this layout looks familiar to you, then it probably is, for more than one reason. A Bridge Too Far, in N-Gauge by Pete Thorpe, is designed to depict the Royal Albert Bridge and took features from the inaugural Channel 5 TV programme, The Great Model Railway Challenge. The layout's featured in the March 2019 issue of Railway Modeller. Its era is 1956 to 60 and 1968 to 72. Now we have another Great Western themed layout, Burton Bradstock, which is EM gauge by Chris Lester. It's set in the 1950s and features the fictional terminus on the line to Burton Bradstock in Dorset, which assumes the Abbotsbury branch had been extended towards Britain. Track work is hand-built using plywood sleepers and C&L track components. Turnouts are operated by slow-action motors with the controllers on the EMGS type. Here we see Prairie Tank Locomotive 4405 shunting the yard. There's a beautiful wealth of detail, and I really enjoyed the slow running on this layout. The Prairie finishes its final preparations and putting its goods train together as a large Prairie 51 Class 5108 arrives with a local stopping service. Although not to everyone's taste, I'm sure, there's something quite charming about these black locomotives with the early BR emblem. It really does suit them. And as the passenger service comes to a stand, the small Prairie leaves with its goods train.
Rosie, I did it.
We now come to our second 009 gauge layout of the show. This is Wichambreux Rd by David Marshall. The layout depicts a station on the Canterbury Light Railway in the late summer of 1938. The railway was authorised to enable the exploitation of coal reserves. We catch a short train consisting of a tramway-style locomotive with a wagon and a coach leaving the station. Not long after, and a rail motor comes in the other direction. This runs through the platform and reverses into the bay. Now, if you like Great Western Railways, then you really would have enjoyed this show because we have another. This is Durston. It's an 00 gauge layout by Brian Ulrich. It's a representation of a small town station on the GWR single line cross-country route from the southwest to the Cotswolds in the 1930s. Track work is SMP code 75 with matching point work by Markway. Here we see Collect Goods 2271 arriving at the platform with what can either be a milk or a parcels worker. The train will come to a stand, and a short while later the pannier that you may have seen in the stabling road will come out and remove one of the rear cars. At the other end of the layout is a wonderfully modelled goods yard. There's a cattle pen with sheep ready to be loaded into the wagons, various vehicles around the yard, and it is a wonderful scene. Hall Class 5951 Clive Hall now arrives in the opposite direction with a passenger working. Durston really has all the essentials you need for a layout. It's got a station with a bay platform, an engine shed, a goods yard. What more can you ask for? Next is another Great Western layout. It's Mothecombe. It's 00 gauge and it's by the High Wycombe and District Model Railway Society. It depicts a quiet through station on a rural line somewhere in South Devon, operated by both the Great Western Railway and the Southern Railway. Construction of the layout served as a training ground for the junior members of the society. Here we see a pannier locomotive depart with a small milk train. I really like the scenery on this. It's definitely got that summer, late feel, the burnt grass sort of yellowing. Really is lovely. Short trains is definitely the theme of this, as we see a Class 03 shunter D2028 in BR Green arrive with 2 coal wagons and a brake van.
Wagon repair shops, they very often just wait for the nearest can.
The train runs through the platform and beyond so that it can shunt back into the coal side behind. And now for something completely different. Lynth-Haven is an 00 gauge layout by Darren Billock, and it represents a fictional LMS branch line in the 1940s, principally built to serve the local colliery. Here we see ex-Midland 1F 1725 come to a stand at the signal, as it arrives with a small freight train.
Good to see you, yeah. Are you going to fall in next?
Signal is cleared and the train arrives into the throat of the station before it prepares to shunt back into the yard.
Next project. Oh, that's a nice one.
And our final layout is one that we visited before at many other shows, but it's always still brilliant to watch. Rossiter Rise, which is an 00 gauge layout by Terry True, portrays a fictional through station somewhere in the suburbs of North London in the mid-1950s, serving the London Midland Railway Suburban and the London Transport underground services. Considering the size of the layout, there's a lot of action that goes on here, and it's always entertaining whenever I see it. If you do get the chance, do visit it. In fact, if you do get the chance, visit any model railway show. Because I have noticed in the last few I've been to, numbers seem to be quite down, and if we lose them, that's going to be quite disappointing, because I'm sure you enjoy watching them on YouTube, and I enjoy filming them and putting them together for you, but there's nothing better than actually going out and seeing people's hard work and all the layouts that they make. So please, if you can, do make the effort to go and visit these shows, because once they're gone, that's probably it. If you have enjoyed this video, then please click the like button. If you want to see more, then click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again next time.